Hi everybody, welcome back to Scoop Phase. We have an interesting deck today. We have Red Dragon Archfiend. It may not look like it because it's a little strange, but we threw in a small Dogmatica engine, basically because of this Chaos Ruler, the Chaotic Magical Dragon. So the point of the Red Dragon Archfiend deck, like with Resonators and stuff, is usually you make a level 6 Synchro to get into Red Rising. And then Red Rising brings one of your Resonators back from the grave, and what ends up happening is he locks you into Dark Dragon monsters for the whole turn. Dark Dragon Synchro monsters from the extra deck. So it's a little limiting on what you can actually end on. So you usually just end on a gate with Abyss, or this new guy if we ever get him in real life, the Super Red Nova Dragon. But the cool thing is, you can make this Chaos Ruler guy, because he's a Dark Dragon Synchro, and he will excavate the top 5 of your deck, and you add a light or dark monster to your hand, and you mill the rest. So this has a lot of really cool, interesting interactions with this deck. So if you reveal an Ecclesia, you can add that, continue your Synchro plays, and then special the Ecclesia, and then you have a little more backup besides whatever Dark Dragon Synchro you end up ending on. And then on top of that, this really good trap that is for Red Dragon Archfiend, essentially, called Red Rain. So basically, if you have a level 8 or higher Synchro monster on the field, you banish all monsters except for the monster with the highest level, and then all monsters remaining on the field are unaffected by other card effects until the end of the turn, which is pretty good. And then the other effect it has is if a Dark Dragon Synchro monster is Synchro summoned to your field while it's in your graveyard, you add it to your hand. So if you mill this off of the Chaos Ruler and then make an Abyss or something like that, the Red Rain goes back to your hand, which is really nice. So that's basically the concept, the idea of the deck. The rest of the stuff here is just to help try and make either a level 6 Synchros, or sometimes with this guy we can skip right to the level 8 Synchros. So I'll just go over it really quick, step by step here. There's going to be some interesting card numbers, and I'll explain why. So first we have one Nibiru. The reason we're playing one Nibiru is because we're playing Witch of the Black Forest as one of our main things to synchro into a level 6 with. So the cool thing about her is she searches any monster with 1500 less defense, but you can't activate its effects for the rest of the turn. So we have some things that don't need to activate to special summon, like this Synchron Resonator or this Wandering King Wildwind. But if we don't need those things, we can search our one Nibiru if we know we're facing something that the one Nibiru could be a really good emergency button on. And then, so that's why there's one Nibiru. You could play more, you could play none. I just think it's worth playing one. Plus, it's a light, so if you excavate it off of the Chaos Ruler, you can add it to your hand, which is nice. Next, we have Dogmatica Fleur-de-Lis. So he's just part of the whole Dogmatica package. I didn't put in a Dear Servant. I have it here in the side deck if you want to. I found that you didn't need the Dogmatica package that much, or sometimes you'd get nothing but the Dogmatica package, and I had to fit a lot of different things in this deck. So I figured either you just hard draw the Ecclesia or you reveal it off of the Chaos Ruler. But yeah, he's just, if there's a monster summoned from the extra deck, you can special summon him during the main phase, and if you control a Dogmatica when you do this, you can non-target negate a monster on field, which is really nice, and he buffs all your Dogmaticas when they attack. I'll go ahead and skip to Ecclesia too, since we just talked about Fleur-de-Lis. So she can't be destroyed by a battle with a monster special summon from the extra deck. That's actually kind of helpful sometimes. And then if you control monsters from the extra deck, you can special summon her. Now the cool thing is that doesn't lock you out of anything. So, but if she is normal or special summoned, you can choose to activate this effect where you add one Dogmatica card from your deck to your hand, and then if you use this effect, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn. So she's a level 4 that can special summon herself, so that also helps make our level 6 Synchros if we just don't use her search effect. So like if we have 2 Ecclesias, we could very easily just use one of them as our normal summon or with Red Resonator to make our level 6, and we're still not locked out of the extra deck, which is really nice. So that's it for the Dogmaticas. I have one Dogmatica punishment. You don't really want to activate this, because if they break your board of Synchro monsters, your main deck can't really out anything by itself without the extra deck, so it's a little iffy on if you want to use this or not. Also, I had to save some space, and I figured we can search it really easy with the Ecclesia if we really want it. So that's it for the Dogmatica stuff, in the main deck at least. The next thing is we have this Ascator Dawnwalker. He's very, very interesting. So he's level 5. You discard one card to special summon him from your hand in defense, and then you can special summon one Fire Ant Ascator from your hand or deck, which is this guy right here. He doesn't really do anything. He's just a level 3 tuner. But what the cool thing about this, and then you can only special summon synchro monsters from your extra deck the turn you use this, which, if you look at our extra deck, other than these things to send off of punishment, we're not special summoning anything besides synchro monsters. And what this does is he gives you, by himself, off of discarding a card, so you could discard a Red Rain, which is actually really good, he gives you a level 8 synchro, so you can just make the Chaos Ruler, or if you're going second, you can make a Scarlight and try and bait something out with that. Because sometimes your hand is just really awkward and you can't get to the level 6, but this guy just helps give you a free level 8 synchro, which, if you can make the Chaos Ruler, that could help fix your hand. So that's why he's here, and same with the Ant. There's another one of him, or well, not really, but there's another card like him. There's the Supe Duskwalker. She does the same thing, but she summons Supe, which is a level 1 tuner. The problem with her is she makes a level 6, which is good, but making Red Rising with no Resonators in your graveyard is kind of pointless most of the time. So I didn't think she was really worth playing, especially not over this guy. And then next we have Wandering King Wildwood. He's really good in this deck. So if you control a Fiend-type tuner with 1500 or less attack, so all the Resonators, you can just special summon him. And then you get locked out of your extra deck except for Synchro Monsters for the rest of the turn. So he's a little different than Red Rising. He's for the rest of the turn, not for the whole turn. So there actually is a play, if you wanted to put it in here, there is a play where if you use Red Resonator and have enough different monsters in your hand, you can make Kriston Halqifibrax and set up making this guy on your opponent's turn. It's not always guaranteed, so I didn't think it was worth putting in here, and you'd have to cut some stuff. You'd probably have to cut these things for the punishment, which if you end up cutting the punishment altogether, you don't need these things, so you could definitely put it in. All you'd need would be Halqifibrax and Shooting Riser Dragon, and you'd have it. But anyways, that's enough of that. So that's his effect. It doesn't activate, so you can search him off Witch of the Black Forest, and then just special summon him, which is really nice. Then his other effect is during your main phase, except the turn he was sent to grave, so basically the next turn, you can banish him, and you add a Fiend-type tuner with 1500 or less attack from here. So basically he searches for your Resonators the following turn, which is kind of nice. Then we have 2 Skullmeister. He's a decent hand trap right now. He's also level 4, so if we, in an emergency, have to use him to synchro with, we can. He's dark, so you can add him off the Chaos Dragon. And also, you can search him off of Witch of the Black Forest, but you can also search him off of this card, Command Resonator, which you discard one Resonator monster, and you add one level 4 lower Fiend monster from your deck to your hand. So you're usually wanting to get, like, Wandering King Wildwind, or maybe you're trying to get a different Resonator that you didn't have. But you can also get Skullmeister off of it, and it's a quick play, so you can even do that on your opponent's turn if you really want to, so they don't know the Skullmeister's there right away. So that's interesting. I went over Ecclesia, and then Witch of the Black Forest. If she's sent to grave, you add a monster with 1500 less defense. You just can't use its effects for the rest of the turn. Which, like I said, we have a lot of things that kind of cheat around that. And she's just... we don't really need to normal summon that badly, because a lot of the Resonators kind of summon themselves. So she's just a very good normal summon to get us some value. There's also a play you can do. I didn't put him in the extra deck, but there's a tuner called Hoppier Squadron that lets you synchro on your opponent's turn. So you could technically play that and set up a Crystal Wing on your opponent's turn using a Red Rising that you leave there. But I thought it was kind of bricky, and I didn't think it was really worth it. I'd rather do the Halqifibrax thing, to be honest with you. But anyways, that's Witch of the Black Forest. Very good card. Also, she's a dark, so if you make this guy without normal summoning, you can add her to hand, which is kind of nice. And then next, we already went over the Ant, so I'm not going to go over the Ant. We'll go over all the Resonators now. So we have Creation Resonator. He's level 3 Wind. Really low attack and stuff. So if you control a level 8 or higher Synchro monster, you just can special summon him. It's not once per turn, and there is a way for Resonators to add other Resonators back to the hand, so you can loop this if you want. He's just really good one of. The Resonator we're about to get to in a second can grab pretty much any Resonator out of the deck, so you don't really need to play more than one of him. Speaking of that Resonator, we have the newest one, Crimson Resonator. He's level 2, so 2 and 4 makes 6. So him and Red Resonator are the best levels. So if you control no monsters, you just special summon him. And then if the only other monsters you control are Dark Dragon Synchro monsters, you can special summon up to 2 Resonator monsters from your hand or deck. So even if you draw the level of Resonator that you wanted to use, you can still summon it from your hand. And then you can't special summon monsters except dark dragons when you use either of his effects. So, like I said, a lot of times we are getting locked into the dark dragons, so that's why I don't know if the Halka-Fibrax play is completely worth it. But there it is. He's just very good. You can oftentimes make a red Resonator without committing your normal summon, which is very, very good. Same with like making the Chaos guy with this almost. And he's a dark tuner. You could play Void Ogre Dragon if you really wanted to. He's a level 8 Dark Dragon Synchro. But yeah, he's just really good. The next Resonator, the other level 2, is Red Resonator. He's not quite as good as Crimson is right now. When he's normal summon, you special a level 4 or lower monster from your hand. And then when he himself is special summon, you target one face-up monster on the field and you gain life points equal to its attack. Which is pretty cool too. He doesn't lock you into anything. So if you wanted to go the Halka-Fibrax way, you could probably play 3 of him and get away with it. But yeah, him and Crimson Resonator have the best levels, so they're usually how we're making the Red Rising Dragon. And he's a fire. I don't know if that comes up at all, but there it is. The next Resonator we have is Chain Resonator. He is probably both the worst and not the worst at the same time. So he's a level 1 light. The level 1 is actually kind of important. So when he's normal summoned, if there's a synchro monster on the field, you can special summon 1 Resonator from your deck. So he's kind of like a worse Crimson Resonator. But we want to have different names and different levels to summon off of Crimson Resonator. And sometimes you can do your synchro plays without normal summoning, and he can be a pretty good extender for that. And then we have DD Crow. It's the same reason we have for Witch of the Black Forest. We can search it. We can search the 1 DD Crow off of that. We can also add it off the Chaos Dragon, so that's why he's here. And then we have the last Resonator we have is the Synchron Resonator. It's not spelt the same way as a Synchron, so you can't search it with tuning, unfortunately. But so its effect is if a Synchro monster is on the field, you can special summon it from your hand. That doesn't activate, so you can add this off of Witch of the Black Forest to get a free level 1 tuner that just summons itself, which is really nice. And then, if it's sent to the graveyard, you can target 1 Resonator monster, except itself, add it to your hand. So, and that's not once per turn. The summoning from hand is, but the adding back is not. So, like I said before, like with the with the Creation Resonator, you can loop your Resonators back into your hand. So you can summon the Chain Resonator off of Crimson if you haven't normaled already. Synchro it away with this, and then add the Chain Resonator back, and then normal the Chain Resonator. Or you can like add the Creation Resonator back, summon it, synchro with it, add it back again if you have another of these, and then add it back again, summon it. It's like, so that part of this effect is very, very good. And also it's level 1, which is also very helpful because it helps make Abyss and like Bane and stuff, and then it helps with Red Rising's other effect, which we'll get to when we get to Red Rising. So that's it for the monsters. We have 1 Harpy's Feather Duster because we have to be able to out a Mystic Mind somehow in this deck, unfortunately. We have 3 Resonator Call. You just add 1 Resonator monster from your deck to your hand, which is really nice, and it's not once per turn. So if you're missing Crimson, you can get Crimson. If you want Red, you can get Red. If you need this thing, you can get it. They're very easy to get to. Then we have 2 Pot Desires, which probably seems weird because of all the 1-ofs. But this deck has a major problem. Sometimes you'll get hands of all tuners, or sometimes you'll get hands of all non-tuners. And in those cases, you usually can't do anything unless those non-tuners are the Dogmatica. So you have to play some draw card. Extravagance doesn't work. You could maybe play Prosperity, but I'd argue a lot of these are actually very important. You do go through them quite quickly. You could play Avarice. You could technically set up an Avarice very easily, but that doesn't help fix your hand to start, so you can't really play that. And you can play Upstart, but I don't know if that really helps. So it's either like Desires or Popper Up. I'd just play Desires. I mean, if you lose like the Ant, you can still summon him, so it's not the end of the world. You're probably not banishing all of your different Resonators. You're probably fine. Like I said, you don't really need the punishment, so if you banish it, it's kind of whatever. I mean, the Fleur-de-Lis kind of sucks if you banish it. And then, like, these one-of-hand traps, you don't really need them. So, we're playing Desires. I wish I could play Prosperity or something, but I really don't think I could. The next, I already went over Command Resonator. I think it's really good. It's kind of awkward because you have to discard a Resonator. It'd be nice if you could discard, like, a Fiend, or a Fiend with a certain amount of attack or less or something, because then it'd be a little more versatile, but it is what it is. And then we have Call by the Grave because hand traps suck. Or, well, we suck against hand traps. We can't do anything about Nibiru. We just gotta have to play through it. Sometimes you can if you don't normal summon. And they do it a little preemptively. Then we went over Red Rain. We're playing 3. We want to see this card. We want to end on at least Abyss plus this card. That's kind of the goal. And then if there's Dogmatica stuff backing up, so be it. And then the one punishment we already went over. So that's the main deck. It's a little weird, but honestly, Resonators, Red Dragon Archfiend, it's kind of a weird deck because it has some really bad restrictions on it for not really a very high payoff. So you kind of have to bolster that in some way. So this is what I'm trying. Is it the best deck ever? Probably not. But I like Red Dragon Archfiend, so there you have it. In the extra deck, we have Red Rising Dragon. He is amazing. Except that they have Zombie World up, which I learned a couple days ago, because I never realized he specifically takes a Fiend Tuner. Anyways, he's level 6. His attack and stuff doesn't really matter that much. So when he's Synchro Summon, you target one Resonator monster in your graveyard and special summon it. And then you are locked into Dark Dragon Synchro monsters the turn you use this. Cool thing is, this is not once per turn. So you can summon him, bring one back, do your synchro plays, make another of him, bring another one back. Which that's why we're playing 3. Another reason why I don't think Prosperity works too, because you can't really get rid of any of these. Maybe a Scarlight or 2, but that's about it. And his other effect is during your main phase, except the turn he was sent to the graveyard, you can banish him from the graveyard, then target 2 level 1 Resonators in your graveyard and special summon them both, which is really nice. So if you have 2 of these in the grave the next turn for follow-up, you can banish him, summon these 2, synchro them away, add 2 different Resonators back. This effect is also not once per turn. Nothing on Red Rising is once per turn. So if you have multiple Red Risings down there from the previous turn, you can do this multiple times, which is pretty nice. And yeah, he's your starter. He's your main thing. If he gets stopped, you're usually in trouble. But yeah, that's Red Rising. He's really good. We don't have original Red Dragon Archfiend, unfortunately, because he's not that good. But we have the next best thing, which I personally actually like better. Is Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend. So he counts as Red Dragon Archfiend while on the field or in the graveyard, which is great. And then once per turn, you can destroy as many monsters, as many special summoned effect monsters on the field as possible that have attack less than or equal to this card, and then you inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each. So he can basically dark hole the field, which is pretty nice, especially when you consider the fact you can just make him off of just this with very little investment, and you can either blow up their field going second, or force them to negate something, because if their field's going to get blown up, they have to negate this. And then it also burns, so like, if you're playing in real life, you can make this and blow up your own thing to burn someone in time, which is pretty nice. I've actually done that before. A long time ago in a Blue Eyes Dragon Link deck, back when Dark Matter was still legal. Anyways, that's off the point. But yeah, so there he is. I played 2 of them just because he is a Red Dragon Archfiend, and a lot of these extract monsters are very specific on certain effects that require a Red Dragon Archfiend. So he's in here. He's the whole name of the deck, basically. And then we have Chaos Ruler. This card's amazing. I think I've shown this many times in different deck profiles. He's generic, so we don't need to use Fiend Tuners to make him, which is nice, unlike Red Rising. And then, if he's Synchro Summoned, you just excavate the top 5 cards of your deck. You add 1 light or dark monster if you want, and then you send the rest. So, we don't care if we send Red Rains and stuff. And then his other effect is also really good for this deck, because this deck specifically, a lot of the bigger Synchros, you have to use a Dark Dragon Synchro as the non-tuner material. So, you can Synchro him away, and then if he's in the graveyard, you can banish a light or dark monster from your hand or grave to bring him back, and then he's banished when he leaves the field. So you can Synchro him away, bring him back, and Synchro him away for a different big giant Red Dragon Archfiend monster. So that's really nice. So he also, much like Red Rising, he kind of gets our plays started. And then we have probably, I don't know if it's the best one. It's currently what we have in America, or the TCG. He's the best one, because we don't have this guy yet. But, so we have Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss. If you ever played when Agripane was legal, you probably know what this is. So he takes a tuner and a non-tuner Dark Dragon Synchro monster. So you can make him with Red Rising, Scarlight, this guy. It's not that hard. So he has a quick effect where you can target a face-up card your opponent controls and negates effects till the end of the turn. So if they activate, like, say, Raigeki, you target it, it negates the effects, and so the Raigeki doesn't go off. Same thing with if there's a monster on the field. You could technically target a Mystic Mine, but I don't think that's going to save you from it. Because it doesn't destroy, it just negates their effects till the end of the turn. But yeah, he's our only really way to negate anything other than Fleur-de-Lis and, like, I guess hand traps. So he's very important, and he's really big. 3,200 attack, 2,500 defense. He has another effect, which most people probably don't know about. When he inflicts damage, battle damage to your opponent, you can target one tuner monster in your graveyard and special summon it in defense. So he can help recur a lot of your tuners after you beat over something and then go into a bigger dragon, which is nice. And speaking of bigger dragons, we have Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Bane. By the way, Abyss is level 9, so like an 8 plus a 1 makes him is usually what you're doing. Bane is level 10. He's 3,500 attack, 3,000 defense. And he also takes a tuner plus a non-tuner Dark Dragon Synchro monster. So you could use a level 2 with one of your 8s, or you could use a level 1 with Abyss, which you actually use a lot, which I'll explain in a second. So what he does is you contribute one monster, and then you target one Red Dragon Archfiend monster in your graveyard and special summon it. So what you can do is you can make Abyss, and then Synchro Abyss away into Bane with one of your level 1s, and then Bane contributes something to bring the Abyss back. So for example, you could have, say you have Abyss on the field with the Synchron Resonator, and let's say the Creation Resonator is in the graveyard. You can Synchro the Synchron and the Abyss into Bane. The Synchron can add the Creation Resonator back. You can special the Creation Resonator, and then Bane contribute the Creation Resonator to bring back the Abyss. And then now you have a 3,500 attack dragon and a 3,200 attack dragon that negates stuff on field. So that's pretty good. And then he has a very similar effect to Abyss, but it's actually a little better. So when he inflicts battle damage, you special summon 2 tuners with the same level, one from your deck and one from your graveyard in defense, which is pretty crazy. So if you have like this guy in grave, you summon him, then you can summon Chain Resonator from your deck, or you can summon the Crimson from your grave and then summon Red Resonator from your deck and then gain a bunch of life points or something stupid like that. So yeah, it usually doesn't come up because if you're doing battle damage with a lot of these things, you're usually killing them that turn, but sometimes it's actually very helpful. The next one, we actually have one of the more generic, I guess you could say, Red Dragon Archfiend big monsters. We have Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend. He takes 2 tuners plus 1 or more non-tuner monsters, and he's level 10, so like the Chaos Ruler plus 2 of the level 1s could do it, or like a 1 and a 3 with Red Rising or something like that. But it can be any non-tuner, so you can use one of your main deck monsters too. So what his effect is, he must be Synchro Summoned and can't be Special Summoned by other ways, so you unfortunately cannot bring him back with Bane, which kind of sucks. And then you can only use each effect once per turn. So during your main phase 1, not main phase 2, you can destroy all other cards on the field, and then for the rest of the turn, other monsters you control cannot attack except him. So basically he's a complete board wipe, not just monsters, but spells and traps too. So if you can get that to go off against certain decks, that's actually pretty good. And he's 3,500, 3,000. He's the same stats as Tyrant. And his other effect is during either player's battle phase, when a spell or trap is activated, you can negate the activation. If you do, destroy it, and then he gains 500 attack. So if they try and mirror force you, you can negate it. I don't think it's that helpful. I wish it wasn't just during the battle phase. Then he'd be really, really good. I think the goal would be to end on him and Abyss if that was the case. But unfortunately, it's only the battle phase, so whatever. I have him in here as a 1-up because he technically can wipe the entire board, which is really nice. And then we have this guy. I don't know when we're getting him in the TCG. I hope we get him soon because he's amazing. We have Red Supernova Dragon. If you don't know, he is a retrain of... Let me get him up here. He is a retrain of Red Nova Dragon. Red Nova Dragon himself is okay. He's just kind of a big beat stick. But this guy, so he takes 3 tuners plus 1 non-tuner synchro monster, which sounds hard, but it's not actually that hard when you factor Crimson Resonator in. If you make Red Rising, you can technically make this thing. If you make Red Rising with Crimson Resonator, you can technically make this thing right away if you really want to. He's level 12, 4,000 attack, 3,000 defense. He must be Synchro Summoned. He gains 500 attack for each tuner in your graveyard, so you saw all these Resonators, he can get pretty big pretty quick. He cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, so they can't Dryden him, they can't Raigeki him, which is nice. Once per turn, when your opponent activates a monster effect, or when your opponent declares an attack, quick effect, you could banish this card and all cards your opponent controls. So he nukes only their board, but instead of destroying them, he just banishes them, which is really, really nice. It's a little easy to play around, because they could, like, not commit anything to the board and then do something that, like, sends him to grave or, like, it negates him or something. So that's a little annoying, but it's still a very powerful effect. And then during your next end phase, after this card was banished by its own effect, you special summon it. So it takes a while for him to come back, which kind of sucks. But I think the payoff is worth it. Especially if you combine him with Red Rain. You could do Red Rain, banish all their monsters, and then if they somehow recover from that, you have an unaffected guy that's going to banish their entire field next, which is pretty nice. Then we have Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity. He's also a very good card. He's part of the reason I wanted to put the Halqifibrax in, because he's a level 12, he's 4,000 attack, 3,500 defense. He takes 2 tuners, plus 1 non-tuner Dark Dragon Synchro monster, so any of these guys. The 2 tuners is a little annoying sometimes, but you can do it. So when he is synchro summoned, it can miss timing, so that's why you gotta be careful with the Halqifibrax if you go this route. When he is synchro summoned, you can activate this effect. For the rest of this turn, your opponent cannot activate cards. Also, cards your opponent controls cannot activate their effects. I don't think I need to reread that or explain to you why that's good, but it's very good, especially if you can synchro summon on your opponent's turn with Halqifibrax plays, as long as you make sure you don't miss timing. But yeah, and even going second, you can make this really easy, and then they can't do anything to it. And you can chain block with him, so like if you use these Synchron Resonators to make him, you can go Chainlink 1 Synchron Resonator, Chainlink 2 other Synchron Resonator or whatever, and then Chainlink 3 him, which means they now can't respond to it. Oh yeah, I forgot to read, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this effect's activation. Even better. So yeah, they can't respond to this, and then they get all their stuff shut off. So if you're trying to go for game, and like say they have a bunch of back row, you just make this thing, and then now that back row's not doing anything. Which is pretty nice, and he's really big. And then he has other effects too. They're not nearly as good as this first effect, but if he destroys a monster by battle, you inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's original attack. So if he, say, beats over a Dragoon, let's say, they'll take 3,000 on top of whatever they took from battle. So like, say, if the Dragoon was only 3,000, they'd take 1,000 from the battle, and then they'd take the 3,000 from the effect. And then if this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by opponent's card, you can target 1 level 8 or lower Dark Dragon Synchro monster in your graveyard and special summon it. It's probably the worst effect on him, because honestly these things aren't doing much if your opponent destroys them during their turn. It'd be really cool if he could bring Abyss back or something, but unfortunately Abyss is level 9, so... But you can't have it all. That first effect's good enough anyways. So yeah, he's really good. You could probably, like, completely change this whole deck around to try and make it to where you can Halqifibrax this on your opponent's turn, which is also a very valid strategy for this deck. It's a little tricky sometimes. And then the last two, we have 2 targets for punishment. The Titanclad, he can kind of like, you can send him off punishment and then he'll search your Dogmaticas in the end phase, which is kind of nice. And then Intis, you just send, it pops, punishment pops something, and then Intis pops another thing. You could play 2 Intis if you want, or you could just play the 1 Intis and not play anything else, and then just play like another Synchro monster, or try and fit the Halqifibrax and take something else out. You very easily could. So yeah, that's the extra deck. The side deck, I went over some of the stuff. I went over her and Halqifibrax and the Deer Servant. You could make this a go second deck if you really wanted to, with like Pankratops and Gamma Seal, because you can make these big dragon things pretty easily going second. More hand traps if you really wanted to. You can't really search like the Ghost Girls off of Witch of the Black Forest, but they're still really good. You could play Foolish Burial of Goods to kind of give you a 4th copy of Red Rain if you really want to. You could go that route. Same thing, Dark Ruler, Forbidden Droplets. If you go second, you could very easily go second with these cards. Same with Imperm. Or you could go a more stunning route, maybe take the Dogmatica stuff and just play like Solemns and just like sit on Abyss or this guy with like Solemn Strikes and Imperial Order. Even Skill Drain isn't that bad because you have just such big monsters on the field. And then another thing you could play is Gravity Collapse is kind of interesting. When your opponent would summon a monster or monsters, you send 1 face-up Synchro monster you control to the graveyard, and then you negate the summon. And if you do destroy that monster, and then your opponent cannot special summon a monster until the end of this turn. So, if you have like Bane and Abyss in this set, you can tribute the Bane, negate their summon, and then they can't summon for the rest of the turn. It's a counter trap. You could play that. There's really no way to search it consistently, but you could definitely go a more stunny trap route with this if you really wanted to. Yeah, that's it. There's a whole bunch of other different kind of red Resonator cards you could play, like even this Red Nova stuff you could play. If I don't know if any of you have seen, there's that new Majestic Dragon stuff that came out for Stardust. They're coming out in a Japanese set. Could probably play some of that stuff in here. Wouldn't be that hard. But yeah, there you have it. This is Red Dragon Archfiend with Dogmaticas and Witch of the Black Forest and stuff. I hope you guys enjoy it on the next Scoop Phase, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.